Hey, good morning. I am driving into work, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about how do I explain this in a way that doesn't, like, all right, I want to talk about the Q movement. There's a lot of stuff happening now that background is necessary. Back in 2016, if you're not familiar, there's something called a Q level clearance, which is like above top secret. And these things were happening with the Q on 4chan, where these guys, somebody was posting these very interesting, what looked like back channel communications for the masses, right? A lot of people noticed it. It became this kind of its own thing, but it talked about how arrests were coming. It talked about, future events, certain markers in the political landscape that would identify that this was a real thing, that it wasn't some LARP. And even Trump made comments that referenced the Q boards, which seemed to indicate that it was indeed some sort of clandestine government operation that would allow those who were involved in child trafficking, those who were involved in creating situations where war was the outlet for financial gain, a whole slew of areas where one of the main topics was that nothing happens, it's all by design, so that all the wars and everything that we're in, all of the fiscal manipulation, everything that was happening with the US dollar, petrol, other countries, wars, all the wars, every attack, all of those things were part of a controlled opposition or ingrained, what they call the deep state, right? Deep state being government folks that have been put in place strategically over time, over certain administrations, to control the downfall of the U.S. All right, so that's the stage, right? The stage is set. Part of that movement was also that indications. I mean, it's like, again, when you do the checks and balances, if you go, yeah, does this check that box? A lot of times the answer was yes, and that is where you run into these problems where, okay, this thing might be a real thing. If you want deep, you want to deep dive into this a little bit more than what I'm able to kind of provide on this little session, is just look up the Herbert Walker Bush funeral envelopes. Just look that up, and you'll see that something happened at that funeral that is, in many cases, I would classify as remarkable, because something was shared with some of these folks that were indicated in the Q boards that they were going to get, that they were involved in some shady shit. Okay, so these levels of these certain things of confirmation, I was following pretty closely, and I thought for sure this was legitimate, that something appears to be happening. All right, so with that stage kind of being set, so many things were happening which would indicate that this was a real deal. So you had the envelopes that were given to the Clintons, the Bidens, the Obamas, and the Bushes, which clearly indicated something was wrong. Just look at oh my gosh, Jeb Bush's reaction to it. It's something was shared with them that was either highly inappropriate or it was like a gotcha type thing, and it was like, okay, well, this is interesting because you can visually see something. You now have kind of a checkbox like, okay, this might indicate something real is happening. Well, things like that would happen. Some of Trump's statements that would refer to the Q boards like tippy top, or, if to confirm this timeline, please work into your next speech, tippy top. And Trump would do things that he would say tippy top and in his speeches. And so there are just a lot of little things that were kind of checkboxes of confirmation. All right. So this is, 2016. Well, now we're 10 years later. We're at 10 years later. He, looks like he stepped away from the presidential position in 2020 when he apparently lost to Joe Biden. But again, there's so much evidence that the election was stolen, and you have to do your own research on that. But I mean, it's all kind of coming out now that the numbers just don't add up, folks. There's just no getting around it. So then, now that he's in office again, and as we're moving towards there's a lot of things happening that I can't understand what they're doing. This administration, I don't understand it. That's not to say that it's not right or wrong. I'm just saying I don't understand it. And I am trying to wrap my head around it, as well as I've kind of foregone the thought that the Q movement is real. I think over time, when nothing happens, when you see all of the evidence of people that have been involved in serious issues, that you feel that justice needs to happen, and another person, just nothing happens. Nothing. You get these charges, bold charges, election 2020, it's validated, has been stolen, no arrests, no public hearings, nothing. So, now that stage is kind of set, here we are now in 2026, and all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, over the last few months, we've been in a conflict with Iran. We've been in a wartime footing with Iran. We've got real problems over there. It doesn't look like this is going to end anytime real soon. Every time we get one step closer, we get two steps back. Israel, I don't know what Israel's doing. It seems like we'll have a peace signing and an agreement, and all of a sudden Israel bombs something, and it's like, okay, we're in this perpetual kind of circle jerk here, and I don't see any way necessarily out of it in a way that is going to be beneficial for the country. But back to the point that now you'll see, Truth Social posts or X posts coming from President Trump referencing old Q posts. And now I follow a few people. I don't want to give any specific names, but some folks that still apparently believe very highly that the Q movement is real. But then granted, some things may be, sorry, I think I spit there. Some things may be more feasible than others. Okay, I'll give you that. But still has not been any movement that they're apparently laying the trap. And the trap, there's things like, that the stage is set. We're all actors on a stage. The movement's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to make it to the end, basically. There are certain sayings like nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing can stop what is coming means that it's kind of the chess, chess has been played. You can win 7-10 moves out, and nothing they do will stop that. Okay, I get all that, but it's been 10 years. The reason I'm making this post and talking about this a little bit is because I have serious questions about the validity of not only some of the content that's being posted recently. It feels more like a distraction, and when you try to ask questions about it from people that are following they say shit like, "Oh, sweetheart, buckle up. Like, get ready. You don't know. You're not a real patriot." Listen, sweetheart. I'm a combat veteran. I have seen a lot of things. I have pretty solid background. And yeah, okay, nothing can stop what. Okay, buckle up. Okay, you've offered nothing to answer my questions. You've offered no rational explanation to some of the claims that are being made in the current version of the Q movement, in the present. So I go back to asking more questions. Please help explain why these things are happening, and what does that have to do with everything that's going on, and what's the exit strategy here? I don't see any type of exit strategy. Now listen, I'll preface this with, I hope I am wrong. All right, I do. I think a lot of shit went on with Epstein, more than we will ever know. I think a lot of shit happened with Pizzagate. I think that is a real thing, and these were emails from Podesta and these folks that clearly they were talking about human trafficking. Clearly they were talking about children. Clearly they were talking about pedophilia. There's just no getting around that. You can't sit there and say, no, they're just really, no, you don't know. And they said, well, there was an investigation. Well, the guy that said there was an investigation, I think he got arrested just last year on pedophilia for having child pornography. So the guy that said it's been debunked in his articles was arrested for child trafficking, not child trafficking, but for having minor content. So get the fuck out of here, man. There was no real investigation that I could tell, that I could see, and I live in the area. So I'm just telling you guys, there's a lot more to it. So if you follow people like Ian Carroll, the most articulate in his research when he shares things, he kind of goes off the rails a little bit for me, but I still think that he's got the most substance. So if you're not following him, you might want to, and just be a little more observant. Now he's not like a Trump fanboy either. He's just looking at the data and calling it out for what it is. There's also John, I can't remember his last name right now off the top of my head, from Badlands Media. You can find him on Rumble and on Telegram. He brings a very interesting perspective on a lot of this stuff. I wasn't going to call out the names of people that you should follow to do your own research, but I think it's important to have all sides of the field of view, right? So that you're looking at the whole picture, that you're not just kind of dealing with this tunnel vision. If you are someone who says things in response to questions, nothing can stop what is coming, or buckle up, or ideally not a patriot, or whatever the case is, I feel like you are an idiot. That's just where I'm at, because you offer nothing of substance. And then when challenged, I'm not trying to argue. I'll just ask isolating questions. Why are they doing it this way? What do you mean by this? Please give me better context. If you say that this is definitely happening, that this is, well, explain to me why. Why do you think that? How did you come to that conclusion? And then they say, oh, honey, the whole country, the grandma, oh, honey, you just don't know. Oh, if you just know, just, sit back and watch. Sit back, what? And I'll give you an example of why. The reason why I'm making this post is because recently, not even recently, there have been these suggestions that there's a lot of people wearing these masks in DC. And I'm sorry, that's where you completely freaking lose me. Completely. All these other things, I could have taken a little bit of the bait. I could have tasted the sardine on the hook, but you are losing me when you make these crazy ass that were all part of a movie, and everyone's been eliminated, or that different actors are playing different characters, like that Biden was wearing a mask the whole time, and that he's an actor. Okay, look, clearly the guy had some plastic surgery done. I can see the tucks, and they're like, well, look at the earlobes, they're different, or look at your this is not the same guy. All right, I'm telling you guys that this stuff, that all these things and claims that these are actors, is just, it's really wild to watch. So an example, I'm watching something the other day in JD Vance, and this is one of the like the Q kind of leaders in the social stratosphere. And I want you to look at this from just a very basic level. Very basic. The claim is that JD Vance is wearing a mask. And then somebody jumps on, I heard he's being played by Paul Walker, the actor that passed away in the wasn't a GT1, I think it was a Porsche. Okay, from Fast and Furious, that he's actually now involved, that he's not dead, and all these crazy ass comments. And then the problem I have with it is, okay, one person saying it is one thing, okay, dismissed. Another person saying, oh yeah, and then another person saying, yeah, people just don't know. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean it's Paul Walker playing a part? Paul Walker is dead. It's been confirmed in multiple. It's what we're dealing with here is not just a Q movement now. We're dealing with a bit of insanity. This is not even borderline insanity. This is insane. So there's a post, and the picture goes up of JD Vance, and JD's always had kind of an odd face. Little puffy here and there. His eyes seem a little bit inward, and then they take the red arrows and they say, look, they're not even hiding it anymore. JD Vance has been gone for 10 years. All right, well, here's the problem, folks, and you guys just stop with the nonsense. You're claiming that it's a guy wearing a mask, an actor. All of a sudden, this actor understands the political landscape and can speak on the fly in interviews in front of hundreds of people, and it's a guy behind a mask. Paul Walker's voice has changed to match JD Vance's. Are you fucking kidding me? It's just absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And when you question it, say, okay, I'll give you the benefit of doubt. Let's say that this guy is wearing a mask. What's the purpose? Everyone's got a mask. That one guy saying, oh, there were 4 different people playing Joe Biden. There were, JD Vance has been long gone. Pence is dead. All this just crazy shit, man. And then when you ask the question, okay, explain it to me. Do you understand the logistics necessary to just put on a graduation party for your kid at a park? Just to reserve do you understand the logistics behind that? Do you understand the logistics behind upgrading multiple workstations in an organization with the latest patch? Do you understand the logistics behind these things of iPhone deployment? I want you to think about this. Public eye, mask wearing. Anytime you're caught outside, you have to be wearing the mask in this fucking heat, in front of people where nothing, and then you see this one, there's a video where they didn't use a filter for the light, and it's literally coming off the monitors in front of the guy. So let's say I'm the subject in the camera, and it was Biden, and the light is coming over top of the monitor that's on the desk in front of him, which creates a hard line, and the hard line matches up with his collar, and it creates this black area right below the collar. And everyone's like, there's evidence, there's the evidence. He's wearing a mask. And I'm like, you dope? It's a light effect. And like, come on, man. Like, this does not, that is not something that any sane person it's not a conclusion any sane person would come to, that it's a mask. It looked weird. It did, there's no question. But to then be like, I'm convinced now, oh my God, see, he's wearing a mask. And then when you question it, the lack of substance that comes from these folks. My concern is very big because I've been part of that original movement. I wouldn't say I was hook, line, and sinker, but I was really close. I would say I was probably 70-30, that a lot of the stuff that they were talking about probably had a lot of teeth to it. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get around this fucking guy. All right, let me try it. That it had some teeth to it, that some of the things that they were saying could be, dumbass, some of these things could be problematic for basically the movement, that when you start making these types of claims, you're not just shedding people from the process, but you're painting a picture that is just not real. And you get into this hopium type situation where you want so badly for people to be held accountable for the shit that they've done, that you latch onto anything, and then it becomes its own entity. It just consumes people. And then when you question them, they're like, well, timing is everything, or they just dismiss. They don't dismiss, they just don't offer any substance. Nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing, oh, buckle up. Again, back to the old sayings I've been sharing since the beginning, that doesn't mean anything. The hell are you talking about? Oh, you're not going to be like, what are you talking about? You're just going to be left behind. How am I going to be left behind? Either it happens or it doesn't. Either this stuff comes out or it doesn't. If it doesn't come out, then there's nothing happening. Now, there may be some special operation, some clandestine operation that's happening that we are just not going to be made aware of, ever. That certain things happen behind the scenes. Granted, I'll give you that. That doesn't mean that this movement is a real thing. So all that being said, I guess the whole purpose of this, I wanted to share my thoughts on it, because I'm watching it unfold, and I'm watching these more references from the Trump administration about the Q movement, and people are saying, well, it's quantum. It's the quantum system. When it launches, then all this stuff, and it's just, this whole thing just starts to get just kind of crazy. And then there are people talking about how Nuremberg type trials have been happening in Cuba. Now, you want to look at that, like Cuba, Guantanamo Bay has not shrunk like they claimed it would. That Trump has been expanding it and building, and that is accurate. There are certain EOs, executive orders, that have given Trump specific powers that would normally have been canceled by the Biden administration if this was a real thing. But they didn't, which also means, could it be a real thing? Like, if it gives Trump specific powers to eliminate and remove people from the federal bureaucracies, from certain positions with carte blanche, then that might be something. There's a lot of the little things that you can get into when you talk about the commanders of the Pacific Fleet and the ties between. Like, I'm just giving you just some points to research yourself. The ties between them and the Trump administration. So those things have legs. Those things have some levels of believability that you could say something could be happening there. But when you get into this other shit, it goes beyond the realm of belief. It's there's a willful suspension of disbelief that you use when you go see a film, so that you can enjoy the movie. That you're like, okay, I'm going to suspend belief here because I know that that's bullshit. But if I just allow myself this temporary belief system so I can enjoy the film, it'll be a much better experience, right? So we all go through that. But when it comes to real life, you can't. You have to go on evidence. You have to go on observable evidence. You have to go on things that you can align with your worldview, but also be ready to hear something that could blow your worldview completely out of the water. So if you have a belief system that leans one way, and then you have a evidence that says, that's not real, you have to go with what the evidence is to come to a conclusion. Doesn't mean you have to follow it, but you have to come to a conclusion. And then when it comes to talking about these things publicly, about masks and things like that, the best option you have is just to shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. Just stay in your lane. Don't advertise your stupidity publicly. That's my advice to anyone who may be on the ropes there. Do your own research, look at things, be observant, look at things through a different lens. Not everything we're being fed is true. As a matter of fact, I think that news manipulation is a real thing. Look up the church committee on, there's a lot there about news manipulation, news cycle manipulation to control narratives. It's a real thing. The CIA was caught sharing these things, manipulating news agencies. It's called Project Mockingbird. They never admitted that the program was real, but they also never denied it. So therefore, it's real. That they've been involved in news cycles and creating news narratives for many years. And the church committee back in the 60s and 70s were identifying these areas. So I'm just saying, when you look at things, just don't take it in and accept it. Do some research. I've shared things with some of my friends who are like, wow, Jesus Christ, Joe. I'm like, hey, look, I know what it sounds like. I do. I recognize that, but there's something here. There's something to what these guys are talking about. But then, again, you go off the deep end when you're like, everyone's wearing these masks, and it's like, oh my God. So, yeah, you got to do with it what you can. At the end of the day, man, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Trump admin is on the up and up. I'm hoping that the way that they're approaching things right now are the right things to do. We haven't seen a lot of relief at the grocery stores. The cost of living is way up. Honestly, certain things that have happened for us financially, I would not be able to. I don't know how we'd be able to do it. I would have to reduce my retirement savings significantly in order to make certain things work. We're very blessed, but I tell you what, man, dude, it's good to see that he's going after possible price gouging for fuel, because it looks like they are definitely gouging prices. That they don't need to reduce the costs at the pump. That they can control that, and they are. So $4 gas. Come on, man. $5 gas. Look at poor Canadians, man. Holy crap. It's just unbelievable, man, how expensive everything is. And it's just going to continue to get worse. So I'm hoping they're on the right track for that. I'm hoping that we can get out of the Iran conflict and save face. I do. But, I'm not as hopeful as I was. Let's put it that way. I have real concerns. I have real questions. And I got to do a little more research and see if I can find answers to some of this stuff. But, I am also trying to finish up a couple of projects and focus on some of the creative elements and not worry so much about politics, but this other stuff. When I start seeing it, man, it just pisses me off. People piss me off. Stupidity pisses me off. Ask some questions, man. You can't sit there and tell someone and say, hey, is it raining? Is it raining outside? You have an obligation, if you're asking those questions, to look out the fucking window. I'm going to leave it with that. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. I guess that's what you're supposed to say. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hopefully I'll see you on the next one very soon. See ya. Bye.